everyone. Welcome back for another week. We have a guest here. I'm so excited to bring on Ashley. She is a friend of mine. Actually, I've met her. We've been in a hotel room together. I actually know her in real life. She does exist. So before I go ahead and introduce Ashley, I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself just a little bit because we're going to talk all about community-based instruction. So I'm so excited. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Ashley.
Thanks, Heather. I'm Ashley, and I'm the face behind Spectacular Days. I have 11 years, almost 12 in the classroom. I have done 7 or 8 years in a self-contained ID room, 4 years in a crosscat setting, which is like a resource setting and inclusion setting.
Mhm.
And then I'm about to wrap up my first year as an ECSE teacher, which is early childhood special education. So lots of different areas of special education.
Yeah, and I know you and I have talked a lot about all the different experiences that you've had. Would you say there's one favorite that you've had so far?
I think they all have bonuses to them. Obviously, every job has pluses and minuses, but this one has like ECSE has been the most challenging because I've never worked with kids this young. So
Mm.
just shifting your mindset a little bit
Yeah.
has definitely been something that I've had to like really work on. But it's all of them have positives, so I can't just pick one.
Yeah. If you teach elementary or early childhood, go ahead and give Ashley a follow because she's got a lot of really great play-based strategies where she's teaching instruction with play, which I feel like we don't get to see a lot. And since it's being pulled from classrooms and we're trying to keep it in there because play is so important for these students. So yeah, I just absolutely love following you and everything that you have to share with us.
Oh, thank you.
So what energizes you about education or teaching in general?
I feel like it's a very common answer, but like the light bulb moment, like this year in ECSE, one of my shining moments is one of my kids said their first word ever.
Mm.
They're almost 5 years old and they've never spoken. And they said their first word, and I seriously cried. Like
Yeah.
I was probably just as excited as the parents were. It's just something, it can seem so small to someone, but this child works so hard
Mhm.
to embrace that and to like push through the barrier that was keeping them back. So little things like that, like to the outsider, it might be just a small win, but to us
Mhm.
as educators, we know what really went into that to make it possible.
Yeah, that's phenomenal and congratulations. It's so exciting that you can say that. Like I had a student say their first word in my class. It's so fun. So let's dive in a little bit to what is community-based instruction. Maybe we have some newer teachers here that aren't as familiar with it. So what is that and what does it kind of look like?
I think for a lot of school districts, it can look different, but the way I included it into my daily routine in school when I worked in middle school ID was it's where students who have IEPs go into the community and they learn
Mhm.
work skills, life skills, and it basically helps them prepare for future employment, housing opportunities, or just to gain independence in certain
Mhm.
skills that they no longer need a caregiver or a parent to assist them in.
Yeah, so for some examples that I know I've done in the past is like we've taken them to Jewel or Target so that they can learn how to grocery shop and navigate the aisles and where do we find produce and where do we find cereal. We've also taken them to things like a playground and a park just to kind of be in the community where they live so that we can show them those things and, say that these things are here in your community and you can bring your family here, you can potentially go there by yourself one day when you're older. And so, yeah, we want to give those opportunities as much as we can for community-based instruction. I know my school goes out either every week or every other week, depending on the age range of the students. Do you know how frequently you typically used to go?
Yes. So we would give the kids, I believe it was 90 minutes 3 times a week.
Okay.
We did block scheduling, and
Yeah.
we could use that how we wanted. Our CBIs could also be within the building um,
Mm,
for students who were not quite ready to go out into the community yet for
yeah.
whatever variety of reasons. But we did have a life skills class every other day, 3 times a week for 90 minutes. And we worked on a variety of different skills, but we tried to go into the community at least once a week, if not if we could get more often, we would try to do that.
Yeah, and so when you're in the building, you do more like simulated situations or maybe isolated skills that you can work on and then take them into the community with them, correct?
Yes, and I would even have them do jobs. So working in a middle school, it was a larger
Mhm.
opportunity of areas they could work in. Like we would put mail in mailboxes, they would shred paper, they would go and look in the lost and found and
Mm.
find if it was labeled, and then we would go take it to the secretary, and then she would write the locker numbers down, and we would like stick it on the kid's locker.
Oh,
We had a
cool.
student that was obsessed with scuff marks on the floor.
Mm.
So, the custodial staff gave us like a stick with a tennis ball, and
Mhm.
this student would go and take the scuffs off of the floor. And it brought that child so much joy. We might see it as like a task that seems silly to give a kid, but this was working on their work skill, endurance to keep them be able to work for longer than a minute. And we would just
Mhm.
increase the time over and over because that's not something that comes overnight. Work endurance really takes a long time.
Mhm.
Thinking back to like when you and I go back into the classroom in August, like I forget how much my feet hurt, like just
Mhm.
standing all day long. And it's just something like that. It's something your body has to adjust to.
Yeah, that's crazy. And this kind of leads into my next question is like, what are the three things that you feel can be the most meaningful for our students when it comes to community-based instruction or CBI?
I feel like knowing their interests and their skill set, like what are they interested in? Because if they are excited about it, they're going to be more willing to do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
I always try to ask the parents, like, where do you see your child? Obviously, they know their child the best. So I had a student obsessed with garbage trucks. So, what can we do as a school, as a community to work with that interest? And how could they be potentially employed with waste management? Like, let's
Mhm.
look at those types of things. Um, and then teaching them skills that are just not going to benefit them like within the school, but also transition to a community and their home. Like hanging clothes on a hanger, because I know they're 11 and they might have special needs, but they also should be helping with their laundry at home if they're
Mhm.
capable. So those are things to show the parents that yes, your child is capable of doing X, Y, and Z. So we're going to start it here and teach the skill, but we're also going to challenge you to do that at home as well.
Yeah. I love that the overlap between school, like the skills that we're teaching at school is totally important and we love those, but we want that overlap to go to school and then go to home. And then in the community. And that would be eventually, I think the goal, I know you're talking about middle school, and I know a lot of my experiences in middle school as well. But eventually we want that end goal to be like a job or a career for that person, so that they can grow into that and gain other skills alongside of those interests that they have. But yeah, chores and helping out at home is like a great way to bring community-based instruction opportunities into your own classroom because job skills are so important and that work endurance is totally part of that. So like I hear all of that and I absolutely love everything you have to say.
Thanks. I'm going to give another quick example for like my little preschoolers. A win that we have learned is they are typically looked at as, babies are little and cute and sweet, but I'm like, nope, they can hang up their coat, they can hang up their book bag. And the
Mhm.
parents are always amazed when they come in and they're like, wait, they do that? I'm like, yes, it's an expectation. Like if they are capable of doing it, they need to do it. So please do this at home as well. Don't hang their
Mhm.
book bag up for them. Don't put their shoes on for them, because if they're on the playground, like you said, and their shoe comes off, they can't be helpless. They've got to like at least attempt or know how to put a shoe on.
Mhm.
If the child is able to. But that's one of the things that I agree. Like
Mhm.
you might think, oh, I'm just trying to get out of the house fast, but you're also like not helping the kid as much sometimes. Like, yes, there
Yeah.
are times you got to throw their shoes on because you're running late, but also make sure you save opportunities to go at a slower pace for them
Mhm.
to work on that skill.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a quote actually on my Instagram that says, "Never do things for students that they can do for themselves." And I
Mhm.
feel like that is such a great thing to remember because yes, totally. I hear it. You're in a hurry, you have to do this. But find those opportunities because it's something as simple as like my shoe fell off and now I can't put it back on because I've never had somebody tell me
Yes.
to put it back on. So then they're waiting for somebody to come and help them and learned helplessness comes into that and we really want to make sure our students are as independent as possible and if not, let's teach them how to ask for help so that we
Mhm.
know not to just automatically do for them, that we can ask for help as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what would you say would be your 3 favorite community outings that you've ever done. It could be general, it could be a specific location. What are your favorites?
So my favorites were, we have a lot of rural areas around here. So we worked on a farm because
Mhm,
you can differentiate skills on a farm. Most kids love animals. Obviously, if kids have allergies, there's other ways you could work at a vegetable farm. You could work in various areas there.
mhm,
That was one. So we would go to a lot of farms, and farms were so grateful for that. Like we would muck stalls, we would brush horses, we
mhm.
did all the things, even though I'm terrified of animals. It was fine. I did it for the children.
Yeah.
Uh, Grocery store, also, like you said, like a Target, a Walmart, those places, because you can look at clothing. You can
Mhm,
also do grocery produce, you can do cosmetics, cleaning supplies, and it's a wide variety of things where your kids are working on. Um,
mhm,
and that is something where you can either do, dollar more, you can do totaling up an order. Do you have enough, to just identifying, hey, where's the cheese going to be? Find the aisle, X, Y, and Z.
mhm,
Um, Plus even those communication skills. And our other one that I really enjoyed was the library. Because that's a place that your kids, that will be always available to your child in a community. And you want them to be able to learn how to ask for help or type in a
mhm,
name of a book that they want, or show them where their interests are. And if
mhm,
not, ask the librarian.
mhm,
And we would do things. They had a teen center where we live, and we would go in and like clean up the teen center, or and then they have video games. So sometimes we would allow them to play for like 5 or 10 minutes. And
mhm,
but there was a lot of skills that they could also work out at a library. So those three things, because there's a wide variety of differentiation, especially
mhm.
when you're in a self-contained setting, your students are very different. So you
Yeah.
could mesh with it all.
Yeah, I remember one of my favorite trips that I ever taken with my students was one of my first years teaching. Obviously, I was really scared to bring my students in the community for the first time. And I was very fortunate to live in a community where we had a grocery store in walking distance from our school. So instead of taking the bus, like that whole process of like, gotta take the bus and go somewhere, and like I'm literally away from the school, like there's nobody who can help me in an emergency. I started taking those walking trips to the grocery store, and we would just go and get like a thing of ice cream and come back. Or like we would go and get a bag of chips and come back. And like it was a quick half hour maybe trip just to kind of get my feet wet to feel more comfortable. And my students really loved it too. And like again, there's a whole lot of safety things that go with like crossing the street, and you can teach those skills. I was very scared, but finding those opportunities, let's teach. We walk on the sidewalk, there's a car coming, we need to stop. All of those things is great to bring into their community, because walking trips are very easy for our students to do at home with their families as well. So,
Right.
um,
I'm gonna say, if you're new to doing CBIs, ask your speech pathologist or your OT or your PT. A lot
mhm,
of times when they're working with your kids and doing their time, they can service them out on CBIs. And then for them, it's even a bonus, because for you, your ratio goes down. Um,
mhm,
we loved having our speech pathologist come with us. She would try to block off timing when she had our students, and we tried to make it overlap for our life
mhm,
skills time. So that's what I tip everyone new, because my first year, I didn't know the speech pathologist could come with us. And then
mhm,
when I had a new one come in, she was like, I would love to go. And I was like, oh,
mhm.
okay, the ratio just went down, because it is
Yeah.
nerve-wracking to go out in a community when you're outnumbered, um, and they're not your children.
No, totally. And I've done that as well. I've had my speech pathologist come with me to the community. There's so many great speech opportunities in the community. And then I usually have my occupational therapist do cooking with us. So there's a lot of fine motor that goes into that. So again, ratios are very different too, which really helps. But what would happen if, let's say, the ratios aren't great? We know like staffing is not always awesome. Maybe we don't have the same staff or just haven't had enough paras. What can we do for our students that we can prepare them for a community outing, maybe just in the building, or like going onto the community, but maybe with some different staff that they're not so familiar with?
Yes, that is perfect. So I use a lot of visuals. You can do virtual field trips, which
Mhm,
has been an awesome thing that's come out of going into digital learning and things like that.
mhm,
Explaining the process, giving your kids time to ask questions, especially
mhm,
if they have anxiety or they have fears of the unknown.
Mhm.
Even for you as a teacher, that means if you go to the location first, take pictures to prepare them, make a slideshow out of it and say,
Mhm.
hey, we're going to go in this store. We're going to talk to Mr. Joe, and then we're going to go down here. And then you could try to act it out within the building or role play,
Mhm.
oh, my question is to find where the ice cream is located and I can't. What should I do? Should I throw myself on the ground and have a meltdown, or should I say, teacher, help me? The
Mhm.
things to role play through it. Um,
Yeah.
and we did have times where if we didn't have enough like staffing where we felt comfortable, we would do small outings where we would take like the eighth graders one day, the seventh graders one day, and the sixth graders. And that way it wasn't, or you could do it by like if you pull names out of a hat or something.
Mhm.
That way, if you needed to do a smaller ratio, or if it was just not feasible to take everybody out at once for scheduling. So there are ways
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah, totally. I know something that's really helped me before is if we are going to like a restaurant or a fast food place, having the menu ahead of time and having my students pick those choices before we get there. And maybe it's even a modified or condensed menu that I've kind of created of like, here are the choices that we have. Here's 4 different choices. Which of these would you like? And if they were able to tell me, like, I don't want any of those 4, I want something different, like I honored that as well. But sometimes that visual, like you said, menu could really help the students like narrow it down to like, oh, I know these chicken nuggets. I've had these chicken nuggets before. This is what I want. And it really saved us a lot in the community where it was like the kid would get to the counter and be like, okay, let's order our food. And they're like, they at least could point to like what they selected on their page, and we're able to communicate that then, because you get in the moment and it can be so scary. I know I sometimes freeze at like fast food places when they're like, give me the food. And I'm like, I don't know what I want yet. Hold on. So yeah,
And
I love all of that.
yeah, it can be overwhelming, but that's perfect. Yes, we were not really allowed to go to restaurants where I'm from. They took that away. I'm sure there was a reason behind it. But I
Mhm.
love that we would do it within the building. So we did like we practiced ordering
Yeah.
takeout
Mhm.
sometimes, like even calling on the phone, because that's a thing. Like they want to be able to order pizza or Chinese when they get old enough. Like they've got to learn how to say their address and say their
Mhm.
name and explain what they want clearly to the
Yep.
person on the other end of the phone. So, yeah, that's a perfect opportunity. Yes, for you. And you could even role play with your
Yep.
menu, practice saying what they wanted.
Yeah, we've done online ordering from like Amazon and get it delivered to the school and that kind of stuff too, with support, not independent, but with support. So it's such a great skill for them to learn too. So you can get really creative with pretty much anything you do. What would you kind of say should be something that teachers should keep in mind and maybe do proactively for themselves before planning and going on community trips?
One, I would make sure to see if your kids have the stamina to be able to go for a long duration or find a place that's a short duration.
Hmm.
Depending on where you're going, I say go look at the layout prior. So if it's like a farm, for instance, you might want to go ahead and be like, "Ooh, if it rains, it's going to be really muddy," or "Oh,
Hmm.
it's really grassy." And that way you can prep parents ahead of time. Like, "Hey, we're going to go to the farm. Please make sure your kid has work boots on today."
Hmm.
Those types of things. Checking out the area. Um, Having a contact for where you're going, because sometimes the bus rolls up and there's no one there to greet you, and you're like, "Well, I've
Hmm.
got a bus full of students." And then checking in, especially if you're going somewhere and it's not like a Target or a Walmart, like making sure you
Hmm.
have a contact to make sure everything is good and smooth. Have a backpack or like some sort of bag that is just for CBI. It has a binder with all necessary numbers in it, all allergies, contact information, um, extra visuals, fidgets,
Hmm.
things that your kids might need if they become upset, or they need support in that sort of sense. And also I feel like, I don't know if people knew this on, I didn't do it the first time because no one told me the rule, but you have to check in with your healthcare clinic, because they're like, "Oh, we have to give you this special bag." I had no idea. I feel like no one tells you some of those like weird things
Yeah.
until like after it happens and you're like, "Oh, I was supposed to." Okay, yep, no worries.
Yeah.
So those things I would say especially, but then like preparing your kids as well, to make sure that they're ready to go and they're comfortable.
Yeah, I think communication with the nurse the school administration, the school secretary, whoever needs to order a bus or some type of transportation for you guys, all of that communication needs to happen. Communication with the parents so that they know that their child is going out of a building. And then where is that location? So yeah, all that communication is something you can totally do ahead of time. I know when I was planning community trips, I would plan a month in advance. So the month before I would plan the next month. And so I'd have all those 4 or 5 weeks planned out of where we were going. I would contact all of them because if it is something like the zoo, I want to let them know we have 10 kids coming to the zoo that day. Can you accommodate a school of 10 kids coming? And give them a little bit of a heads up that's happening. And I love the idea of a community trip bag because having emergency contacts is so important to have. Any student's medication. I know we would always bring extra change of clothes for any of the students, hand wipes, gloves, extra fidgets and tools and that kind of stuff. But like the emergency stuff, like a Band-Aid, like something you might not think about is super meaningful and totally needed. So is there any other resource or blog that you have that you can share with us so that they can read further if they want more information?
So I have a blog post about CBIs that I did within the school, just easy jobs that you could do at any level, elementary, middle,
Awesome.
and high school. Hopefully I'll get some more out soon. But just honestly, Googling YouTube field trips was always wonderful.
Yeah,
Um, just to prep.
love that. Fantastic. So I will make sure to leave all of Ashley's links below so that you can reach out to her if you have other specific questions. You can find her blog, her social media. But thank you so much for being here, Ashley. This was so helpful. I feel like there was a lot of great pieces of information about community trips. But yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to chat with you, and hopefully I get to see you in person again soon.
Yeah. Thank you for watching today's video. If you're new here, make sure to click that like and subscribe button. It would mean so much to me. Click the bell to get notifications for when new videos get released or I go live. As always, leave a comment if you have any questions.